be active outside, and in at a time that made the most sense. While I begrudgingly admit this, we would attend school longer, erasing those long, brain-draining breaks for maybe shorter ones. My more perfect school has great food that the kids grow. The school's gardens would be a neighborhood garden that folks in the community could also use. However, even if it had to be more imaginative, say for a school in the city or a predominantly cold climate, giving kids the responsibility of caring for something growing and alive could be powerful. In my more perfect school, we would never think about money as the thing that determines or drives decisions. We would find a way to fund what needed to be funded. And it wouldn't just be schools or teachers who were held accountable. We all would be. We all would be stakeholders. There would never be such a shameful thing as a failing school, because that would mean we all failed. A more perfect school is diverse, and all identities would be welcome and valued. The faculty would ideally be as diverse, but if not, would consciously seek opportunities to overcome bias, both acknowledged or invisible, so that they become increasingly capable of truly seeing their students. This would be a requirement. A more perfect school doesn't have to celebrate cultural months because the curriculum is so diverse and inclusive that there's no need to. And that is possible. Students see themselves in what they are learning in a myriad of ways all year long. Each teacher would have the wherewithal to teach identity via their curriculum in an age-responsive way. A more perfect school has professional development for everyone that allows them to deepen their content knowledge and develop pedagogy. But how cool would it be to find a way to easily network constantly with teachers and other schools like this? We would all work collaboratively instead of competitively and share workshop best practices and ideas. A more perfect school doesn't have a particular focus, theme, or strand because it has figured out how to provide access for each kid equally and deeply to all subjects through thoughtful scaffolding, and kids graduate with an understanding of how each subject plays a role in our world. It's a tall order, but a challenge that is worth pursuing. My more perfect school gives students the opportunity to engage the world with all they've learned. You learn, learn, and learn, but you have to apply and reflect too. Maybe this happens at the end of each school year or as a major. Maybe this even challenges our grade level idea, and we create new ways to group kids in schools. And I haven't talked much about parents' roles in all of this, but only because I think it's the most important role. I think that in choosing to have a child like I have, you are obligated to assume all of the responsibilities of parenthood. You are a parent, not a breadwinner, not a friend, not a helicopter, but a parent. Parents are not perfect, but expected to be more perfect, always growing, always learning, and constantly being shaped and defined by their child. They never ever coddle, but they always love unconditionally. With this in mind, what if my more perfect school offered professional development to parents? Perhaps these classes would be taught by admin, because all admin should have the opportunity to teach. Admin would be intimately aware of the daily struggles and triumphs of teaching and approach any decision about their school with that wisdom and deference. Plus, working with parents, admin can be a teacher's best allies in strengthening the relationships between all constituents. That's my more perfect school. You might have all kinds of adjectives for my ideas, but at least I'm having them. And that's the first step. And I've shared them with someone, you, and that's the next step. And when I walk into my classroom on Monday, I'm going to try to start living them more perfectly. Thanks.
Good morning. Good morning. Can we do a quick mic check to make sure you can hear both of us? Okay. Super fast. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Libby, the coordinator of community partnerships at Montessori High School at University Circle. Work, or purposeful activity, is a key component of Montessori education, and our place-based service program is one example of meaningful work in action.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee. I'm a senior and the student service manager at MHS, and I work closely with Libby to organize service opportunities for our student body, including whole school service and stewardship days, and drives to benefit local organizations.
Our campus is in the heart of Cleveland's University Circle neighborhood, within walking distance of a high concentration of arts, cultural, and medical institutions. We partner with these nonprofit organizations to expand the area in which our students feel at home. One specific example of a successful service partnership is our partnership with the Tyrian Network to care for the Peace Garden of the Nations in the Cleveland Cultural Gardens. This partnership formed naturally as the garden is in our neighborhood and had a real need for care.
One of our 9th and 10th grade service classes tends the garden on a weekly basis, and using the whole school's service and stewardship days as planning time, the Peace Now Club organized an International Peace Day celebration that we shared with Stoneburg Montessori. When we come together as a community before splitting into small groups, we remind everyone why we have service and stewardship days. Service is something we do as a community for the larger community. We define stewardship as caring for our own environment.
Service is a collaborative effort. We build community by working alongside each other, students and adults alike. Students also have the freedom to propose their own service projects, which provides opportunities for students to take on leadership roles with adult support and guidance. We have 75 minutes 3 times a semester for service days. This is a challenge because students want to work on a project start to finish and see a tangible result. It's important not to over or underestimate what one group can do in a set amount of time, and it is often underestimating what one group can achieve that leads to challenges.
Organizing 100+ students and 20+ staff members makes it challenging to find meaningful service work for everyone. However, we branched out this past year and have hosted workshops on campus that really excited students and staff alike. Rust Belt Riders, a local composting organization, held a workshop on our campus on how to make compost burn bins for our school garden.
With transportation and time as limiting factors, bringing the experts to us increased our ability to offer meaningful service options. Whether students stay on campus or travel to a service site, they need an orientation to the work. It seems obvious, but a brief introduction really helps students see the potential impact of the project within the context of the organization.
In the past 2 years, we have reached out to new organizations all around University Circle that we had no prior contact with.
We started actively seeking new partners to expand our community impact and improve individual student experiences.
We sent service groups to places like the Transplant House and Hope Lodge for the first time in 2014. Students made holiday cards, baked cookies, and interacted with people staying there. Both communities were warm and welcoming and appreciated the time we spent with them. Although we did something simple, we felt like we were making a difference because we could see the smiles of those we had the pleasure of meeting.
When Dee Dee and I put the service groups together, we pay attention to student choice. Students rank their first, second, and third choice projects, but also to pushing students outside their comfort zones. So even if we as a school commit to the same organization every time, students have a chance to experience different projects, see different organizations, and begin to understand the interdependencies of a small neighborhood.
The second semester of my freshman year, I became interested in becoming more involved in the MHS and University Circle community as a member of our student council. I decided I wanted to host Tom's One Day Without Shoes because I love the idea of raising awareness of child poverty through the simple yet difficult task of wearing no shoes. I decided to work with a senior who had shown interest, and we presented the idea to our head of school. He approved as long as we made sure there were no hazards along the way. The day was a success.
Proactive communication like this is important. This is true on an administrative level, a school level, and between the school and the partner organization.
When we held a toiletry drive for the city mission, it wasn't as successful as we had hoped because we did not publicize it broadly enough. We did not collect enough toiletries, so I had to request money from community council to fulfill our goal. The takeaway for me was that a drive like this requires more planning and more emphasis on the goal. It made me realize that participation in a drive is what makes the drive successful. And that experience made me realize that I would tackle it with more gusto and energy.
Students are your best allies. I give Dee Dee the support that she needs. We meet every week to plan these days and activities. And then she is the one who takes what we talk about and communicates it to the student body. Because, let's be honest, students listen to her in a way that they don't listen to me. Finally, a good program empowers students to continue their service work on an individual basis.
Working in the MHS garden opened doors for me. I began first as a PE student, then a volunteer, and then was offered a job. I find working in the garden to be especially meaningful because I get to grow fresh food for our school kitchen and boarding house, and I get to share our beautiful flower bouquets and fresh produce at farmers' stands.
Dee Dee is one example, but other students have also seen success transferring their work within an organization, from tutoring with a service class to taking that on as an individual commitment, as one example.
My involvement in the MHS service program has pushed me to approach and collaborate with both adults and peers more confidently. I have a greater sense of organization and how to manage my time more efficiently, and I'm able to think outside of the box and approach service projects in a more creative and imaginative way.
Together, student and staff perspectives shape a place-based service program that serves the needs of the broader community and the needs of students. In the end, a meaningful service program should be about purposeful work and empowering students to invest in the local community. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cheryl Davis. I have the great pleasure of having a dual role. I actually am the outreach coordinator for Convent and Stewart Hall. In my years in that work, created an opportunity to develop a nonprofit and do some work in the Western Addition of San Francisco. Part of what we do is really try to work with folks to understand the journey and how we help young people get there, and regardless to what community they come from. And that starts with expectations. High expectations are important. And then we talk about the level of exposure. We can't expect students that have the experiences in our schools to have the same experiences as young people in low-income neighborhoods. So we start with high expectations. We then talk about the tools and resources and try to make sure that we have similar opportunities and access to them. And then what it looks like for support staff. We do a lot for our teachers in schools, but not as much for our community partners. Part of that is bringing our two worlds together. So we have students that are working in community, and then we have students that are working in our school, and we have them come together, and it's not an us and them. And it's not these kids come from that neighborhood, we're all one neighborhood. And how do we look at each other as the same? We try to make sure that the experiences that our students in our schools have, we give those to our students in the community as well. Hands-on opportunities, expecting them to be able to do the work and not expecting any less from them. Exposing them to the same expectations and tools and resources and opportunities that we see every day and we really take for granted in our schools. The opportunity to do things that in public schools sometimes people just don't think they have the time for, but really is true learning. To be able to get their hands dirty, to experience the nature in a way that they don't get to do because they live in concrete jungles, a lot of them, and a lot of times they don't even go outside their little area. We have been so grateful for the opportunity to partner our boys' school with young men from the inner city because they actually see young men doing work and being expected to do work and to see those challenges. We've had young men that were in 8th grade that were reading at a 2nd grade level that nobody had any high expectations for them and didn't work with them to be able to move forward. But when they came into our school community with those high expectations, we expected more and we were able to give them the support that they needed in order to reach higher and go beyond in a way that they hadn't been able to experience before. So we don't just equip our staff, we spend the school year and the summer working with our community partners. They come in, they get to participate in workshops that are just oftentimes only for our school, but we open up the door. We let them use our tablets and our iPads and our computers, and then they get to have access to those resources. And then we celebrate our community and their strengths. The tennis instructor that we use is actually one from a community center. He's been ranked, but sometimes people feel like because he's at a community center, he's not as relevant as someone else, but he actually loves the job and has a passion for it. We have culinary instructors that come from the community, and of course a lot of our basketball stars and support come from the community. We also get the opportunity to have our young people experience, the young people from the community come in and be able to experience those hands-on things where you get to bring in the animals and you get to bring in science experts, and they get to have fun seeing science in a different way. Young people coming together and doing arts and crafts and having a good time doing it and being able to not feel less than, because sometimes when young men are involved in activities like that, people make fun of them, but when you're in a culture and a climate where it's celebrated, it changes everything. We do a backpack giveaway, and when we've done that, what's been amazing is that the kids from the neighborhood ask the kids from the school which backpack they're going to pick. That's how we know that we've done what we wanted. They don't see a difference. They don't say, oh, that kid's from the school, he doesn't need a backpack. They assume we're all there together. Our focus is really on how do we fix the pipeline, how do we address the broken bridge, how do we deal with these gaps, because they impact all of us, not just that community, not just that neighborhood, and we want everyone to understand that as we improve another child's access to education, we improve our own. We work with dozens of community partners. We're not just trying to focus on the closest to us, but we understand the schools and the neighborhood partners and the communities that are there, and we will all work together to develop curriculum and to develop lessons and field trips and activities that are not just for our school, but for our neighborhood. We consider everyone a community engineer. We're all responsible to develop young people and to build the pathways to success, whether they're in our school or whether they're in our neighborhood. And we all focus on developing education chances and exposure and developing high expectations and sharing that with others. Last year we were able to partner with Super Bowl 50, and it was amazing because the young people all of a sudden were able to take their interest in football and parlay that into education and reading and academics, and it made them feel important in a way that they hadn't experienced before, that our school students take for granted. Giving young people the chance to stand up and speak and be recognized and be validated, those little things that we do in our schools with showcases and field days and being able to be celebrated, it's a huge thing that can change someone's life, just being able to speak in front of a crowd and have them smile at them and recognize their existence. We developed a curriculum with our partners for Everybody Reads to really talk about how we engage students in our schools that can be used by parents, that can be used by service providers, that can be used by rec centers, because we understand the importance of literacy in impacting what happens within our communities. And so that is something that we're excited about, that we actually bring in authors like National Book Award winner Jacqueline Woodson, Congressman John Lewis, and they don't come just to our school, but they go into community. Because now these young people are seeing people that look like them, that are telling their stories, and now they're like, oh, my story might be important too. And then last year we were able to do that. The young people shared their stories with the mayor, the supervisor, the chief of police, and now all of a sudden they were like, I think I must be important because all these people are listening to my story. And this is about how we take time to not just feel so great because we brought someone into our community, but how we make it one community and celebrate each other. Thank you.
So we're going to go on a little detour. So we're going to talk about cities, right? So you got your school, you got your city, you got the world. We're going to intertwine each, but think about how your school is affected by this context we'll be talking about today. How many people are from Cleveland? So a good bit. So we're going to focus on Rust Belt cities, but think about how these national trends affect you. So before I went into urban planning, I studied psychology. And I look at the city as a collective of emotions. So the study of precise laws and specific effects of the geographical environment, consciously organized or not, on the emotions and behavior of individuals. So emotions affect behaviors, behaviors affect your city. So Cleveland was affected by loss of people, loss of jobs. So think about if you had a sudden loss in your life. It affects who you are. Cleveland is absorbed with loss. laws. It affects their thinking, it affects their policy. It's all about restriction. And it's not just Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Detroit. We all have this, what we call Rust Belt shame. So it's a badge of honor to be the Cleveland lowlife, right? And that while, there's shame and pride, it's two sides of the same coin, but you really need to get beyond that to be able to grow your city. But this restriction, so my colleague Chris Bream, he wrote this in 2000. The focus on retaining versus attracting workers is pervasive in local policies. One marketing character thought of by the Pittsburgh Regional Alliance, whose mission is to promote Pittsburgh, was the genial border guard Bob. The image was of an older uniformed sentinel on Pittsburgh's borders, keeping our citizens, in particular region, or the younger workers, from leaving the region. So they scrubbed the program, but this is kind of what it was, right? This guy on your billboard, this guy in your magazine, Barney Fife, telling the young people not to go. And think how bad that is as a projection of your city to the world. It's awful. Cleveland did similar. Their big tagline in 1984 was, New York's the Big Apple, but Cleveland's a plum. This was sponsored by the businesses, sponsored by the plain dealer, right? Projecting an easily bruised fruit to the world. You have the Big Apple, or the plum. It's really bad. It's a really bad projection. The problem with this, especially for Rust Belt cities, is deindustrialization affected us, drove loss. We need to be retapped globally. And so the one thing I say when I do these talks, think of your city as a fishbowl. When you cut off the circulation, what happens? The system becomes inert. So building up walls is the last thing you want to do when you want to get into the knowledge economy. You need to be tapped in. So we did a study for the Cleveland Foundation, and we looked at not about what's leaving, all the people leaving, all the decentralization, but what's coming in. We call it the fifth migration. So it's about people coming back to the city. And people coming back to the Rust Belt. So the research shows 2000 to 2007, Cleveland experienced a brain drain of negative 10,000. During the Great Recession, plus 7,000 young adults with college degrees. Over the last 3 years, plus another 7,000 of young adults with college degrees. Last 3 years, we were tied with Miami and Seattle. So people coming back to the Rust Belt. Think about that. Now we're going to get into a little, so this is Cuyahoga County. The green dots are young adults with college degrees. The black dots are just young adults without. You see the pattern? Globalization of the core and communities with a lot of people. So this core is really changing the face. Remember psychogeography, moving in and changing the face of the city. The top photo is a parking lot that's today. The bottom is a rendering that will happen in 3 years. And it's being driven by this in-migration. Globalization on the bottom is happening, and it's being driven by a new perception of the city. Who's coming in? So we looked at who's coming back to the city. The biggest net migrant inflow into Cleveland is from Brooklyn, New York. Think about that, right? Everyone wants to go to Brooklyn, but this is not what's, so the migration shifts are changing. It's coming inland. Why is that? We call it the LeBron James migration. He's coming back home. In his letter, he said, in Northeast Ohio, you have to earn what you get, and paraphrasing. It's not about the rat race. It's about coming home and doing something. Changing your city. That's what LeBron is doing, and he's finding it really hard. So look at the aspirational geography. A lot of this in-migration is suburbanization into the urban areas. It's a flip. Back in the day, the aspirational geography was the suburbs, Leave to Beaver. Friends, right? It's about going back into the city. So the aspirational geography is switching. So we call it gentrification, basically. And now it's creating problems. The black areas are those areas that have higher college degree attainments than the nation. The red areas aren't. But you see how that split was, the red and black? In geopolitical analysis, they call this the core and gap. Countries tapped into globalization are the core. Better health outcomes, better education. The gap are areas of chronic conflict, poor health, poor education. That's the geopolitical angle. But you can break that down in the city. In the city of Cleveland, there's the same areas. There's the core areas and there's the gap areas. Areas with good education, areas with poor education. In this area, the life expectancy is 15 years higher than 3 miles going downtown. And so this is a racial map of the Koran Gap. Green is African American, the white was blue. Now, what's really going on is these isolate areas have been deleveraged from global manufacturing. That's what's really creating concentrated poverty. The days of just going up to the factory floor and getting a job are gone. You need training, or else you're going to be isolated from the global economy. It's extremely hard to do. It's extremely hard to re-tap communities into the global economy. No city has done it yet. But in Cleveland, there's different. The health tech corridor is where our anchor institutions are. It's where our global capital is, and it runs right through the most impoverished neighborhoods. Cleveland Clinic is right next to third world infant mortality rate neighborhoods. Think about that. So how do we reconnect these neighborhoods with these really strong assets? So I recently did a piece, and think about this. This aspect of gentrification, but we say historically investment is mostly made so as to further a city's momentum into the future. Yes, a younger, educated generation has found aspiration in Cleveland's core. This is undoubtedly important. Yet to think Cleveland can come back by deepening the pattern of isolation versus prosperity is to ignore a basic tenet of modernization, that with evolution comes progress, not just economically, but humanly. Opportunely, Cleveland's rebirth is in its infancy. The city is still alive, and the shadows of all it has lost. This allows for a consciousness to be reborn right. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Brian Smallwood, and I am the Executive Director for the Inner City Tennis Clinics. And I love Cleveland. And our program takes place there. So I don't know if I got this right, but I'm going to start it. Bam. Okay. ICTC was founded in 2010 and served 160 youth, receiving accolades from the entire community in the process. Since then, we've provided a free 8-week summer program with 2 meals per day to thousands of urban children ages 6 to 18 residing in Cleveland. In 2016, ICTC anticipates 275 to 300 participants. What we do, our goals. ICTC was designed to expose urban youth to new concepts and skill sets, as well as increase literacy skills that will provide long-term positive effects on lives and ultimately increase graduation rates. This year, we're going to continue to build and integrate and unify long-term tennis community. The majority of the ICTC participants attends the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, which has a graduation rate of approximately 56%. However, most of our kids come from schools that are well-intended. However, it's not about race, it's about children. And what we do is we're trying to fill the gaps that the schools aren't providing. We have 5 components in our program: literacy, fitness, poetry, tennis, and wellness. These gaps are seen in all of the kids that come to our program. One of these gaps that we provide is wellness. Our wellness program is based off of the health core curriculum in combination with Dr. Oz's program, as well as Dr. Rome, who is the head of adolescent department at Cleveland Clinic. She's also one of the board members of our organization. In that program, this is, I feel like one of those guys on the national debates, right? So this is literacy. Our literacy program, and by the way, the person that did our literacy program is HP grad, go Blazers. We do in our literacy program experiential learning. And this is our tennis program. The tennis model is specifically designed to introduce participants to the sport of tennis, terminology, rules, and instruction, and an awareness of playing recreational tennis as a means of being physically active at any age and to show them that it's a lifetime sport. We try to provide competitive opportunities through team tennis play and 10 and under tennis. Poetry slam. Students learn the basics of poetry and spoken word and are prompted to write and perform a poem in a classroom or on a camp stage to experience reading, writing, and performing with passion and cadence. We try to create an awareness of different poetry genres and encourage public speaking skills that will promote confidence and self-assuredness. Recently, 3 of our young poets performed at the Cornell University alumni party and brought the house down. Fitness. We encourage speed, coordination, strength, endurance, as well as mental toughness. We try to increase awareness of how the body works in injury prevention. By challenging the kids to be active and developing their desire to be active, we increase their times in speed trials. Why do we do what we do? Well, there's 3 main reasons. There's education, the obesity rate, and the lack of sports opportunities in the schools. So basically what we're trying to do is, again, fill the gaps that these kids aren't getting in schools. We're trying to improve the demographic of where these kids live. Studies show that kids that live at or below the poverty line are 10 times more likely to drop out of school than those in high-income families. 41.5% of the students in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District live at or below that poverty line. About our curriculum, which I ran out of time on with illiteracy, we do experiential learning. So what we found is that the kids, if they were involved in a program that was like a classroom, they hated it. So what we do is we changed everything. We kind of tricked them into learning. We tricked them into talking about socially relevant subjects and tricked them into learning. What we're trying to do also is we're trying to fill the gap of the positive black role model, as well as being a primary beneficiary, the individuals of the community of Huff, which is where we are, which is the former site of the civil rights riots. We're trying to give mentorship opportunities to the kids in our program by hiring them back. The community. Now, you see this cop car and you think, oh boy, right? But really what we're doing is we're reinventing what the kids think about law enforcement. We're reinventing about what the kids see as the social authority figures. And a lot of that has been ruined over the years with social media. But we also not only improve the community, but we try to as well give volunteer opportunities to all kinds of kids all over Cleveland, both east and west side. Our volunteers consist of family members, mothers, fathers, grandparents, members of the Cleveland Clinic, some of our sponsors, Cleveland Metropolitan School District teachers, and as you see here, we're connecting. One of the byproducts of our program is to bridge the gap between 2 worlds like seen here. Here we have a volunteer tennis player from University School with one of our kids from Huff, which we hired back and will be running our tennis program this summer. And in many other programs, you don't see this connection happening. The other thing that's happening is we're getting a lot of quantitative and qualitative results. Because we offer the 5 programs, we get, initially we thought quantitative, okay, we'll measure everybody's reading. Kids hate it. So what we went to is experiential learning, and what we're trying to do is get qualitative results from poetry, slam, wellness, and literacy, and get the quantitative from tennis and fitness. And we've been successful. That's a great picture. We've been successful. We won some awards. We received the Outstanding Performance of the Year by an organization award from the United States Tennis Association. Also